Hey guys, CommonSensei here, and welcome back to another episode of the I'm Just Sayin video podcast, where I serve as your tour guide through this minefield of liberal idiocy, ridiculousness, and stupidity. Just recently got back from a fishing trip in Alaska, and stayed with some good friends of ours, Lauren and Diana. Fantastic people, strong conservatives, and patriots. Appreciate you having us. Shout out to them. And also appreciate your support here on the podcast. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the Illinois PACT Act, which has to do with the rising crime, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about just crime in general and how it's impacting the nation. All right, so we're going to break it down, but before we do that, got my normal cup of joe, the currently still unnamed cup, as I haven't decided on one in particular. So keep those suggestions coming back in. So take a sip of that Java. And let's get it started. All right, so as you guys know, since Biden has taken office, and you should know this, if you don't know this, then you've been living under a rock for the last 2 years.
Do I look like an idiot?
Nope. Idiot.
But for those of you that have been paying attention, crime has spiked, particularly in liberal cities all across the nation, in every major city, particularly these liberal cities, as I said before. Okay, so Illinois comes out with this new law called the Safety Act. Okay, Safety Act, it stands for Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today. House Bill 3653 out of Illinois. Now, this was actually passed in 2021, but there's a particular part of it that comes into play January 1st, 2023. All right, so I'm going to get into this real quick because there's been a lot of talk about this in social media, a lot of it in the news, different news articles, different conversations, particularly on the side of conservatives. So here's the Safety Act in a nutshell. Come January 1st, 2023, the state of Illinois has listed 12 different felonies that are now going to be quote-unquote non-detainable. And I'll get into non-detainable in a minute, but let's go over the list, all right? So aggravated battery, aggravated DUI, aggravated fleeing, arson, burglary, drug-induced homicide, intimidation, kidnapping, robbery, second-degree murder. Really? What? And threatening a public official. What? I think they probably could have come up with something a little more serious than that to put in there. Anyways, whatever. So you have probably heard, and if you haven't, then you will, how these are non-detainable. And a lot of people are taking that as you can't be arrested for it. You could commit this crime, completely get away with it. And that's actually not how it works, okay? So, in a nutshell, what it means is the state of Illinois, come January 1st, is going to get rid of bail requirements for people who are arrested and booked into jail, okay? Now, I absolutely agree with that in certain instances. As a lot of you already know, I'm a cop, okay? I deal with this in my home state. The men and women that I work with, we deal with this all the time. The problem is this, and we actually have this we're in the state that I work in. However, it's a little bit different. The state that we work in, they'll kick somebody loose based on the severity of those charges, okay? For example, retail theft. Guy goes into a store, steals a couple of candy bars, maybe a pair of shoes, a couple of t-shirts, walks out. Okay, fine, he could be arrested for retail theft. And usually what they'll do is they'll book him into the jail. They will give him a court date, and then he'll be kicked back out on the street with a promise to appear, that he'll appear on that particular court date to answer for the charges. Okay, that is not what the Safety Act is. That is not what's going on here. What they're going to do is they're going to get completely rid of bail altogether. So bail will be gone. In other words, you won't have to pay anything to get out of jail. So let's say you rob somebody. You rob somebody in the state of Illinois, you get arrested for it, they book you in a jail, you get a court date from a judge, they kick you back out on the street, and then you're good to go until you have to show up for your court date. That's a huge problem. Huge problem. at least in my experience, and I'm sure a lot of you that are watching who have law enforcement experience or know law enforcement officers, we see this quite a bit where reoffenders come out once they get kicked out of the jail, particularly violent offenders, drug traffickers, they reoffend over and over and over and over again. So this whole bail reform stuff is designed to keep the low-level criminal, somebody that is not committing violent crimes, out of the jail. But this Safety Act does the same thing with murderers, with drug dealers, with aggravated DUI, with robbery. You can see where I'm going with this. This is a problem. Because as these people get released, guess what? Do you think that they're all going to just say, you know what? Yeah, I got caught. Guess I'm just going to show up on my court day and face the music. No. No. That is not how it happens. A large percentage of them get kicked back down on the street, they reoffend, and then when it's time for them to go back to court to answer for the previous charge, they just don't show up. And then guess what? You issue a warrant. Then we got to go find them. Once we find them, if we find them, then we book them back into jail. Guess what happens? Somebody that gets booked into jail and they're only there for a warrant, normally, if it's a low-level thing, at least in my state, they'll give them another court date, kick them back out on the street. But with this bill, with this law in Illinois, they're going to take that violent offender and they're going to kick them back out on the street, again, without having to pay any kind of bail. Now, there's a caveat to this. The judge can say, hey, this person is a legitimate threat to society or a particular person or is likely to flee. Therefore, we're going to hold them in the jail until their court date comes up. Don't bet on it. This is a liberal state with liberal judges, and I'm telling you right now, by getting rid of this requirement, the legislature is essentially telling the court system, let them out of jail. People are going to get killed. People are going to get hurt. People are going to get robbed. Mark my words on this. This is coming to a city and state near you if we don't get ahead of this. You see it in New York, you see it in LA, you see it in Atlanta, you see it all over San Francisco, you're seeing it in Chicago, you're seeing it all over the place, okay? So, again, it's about pretrial confinement. Can they be arrested? Yeah, they can be arrested. We can book them into jail, but then they're going to kick them right back out on the street. Stupid. So somebody recently asked me, hey, can liberals honestly be this dumb? I mean, can they honestly be that ignorant where they think that something like this will work? And my answer to them was, no, they're not that dumb. They're not that dumb at all. See, there's only two choices here. A, they are that dumb and ignorant and believe honestly that this is the right thing to do and that it will absolutely 100% work.
You gotta be shitting me, pal!
Or it's intentional. Those are the only two options here. I'll let you decide what you think it is. See, what you have to understand is liberalism is this leftist agenda. It's kind of like an infection. You're walking down the street and then you're in your flip-flops and you cut your foot on a little something. It might be like a little rusty nail or maybe a piece of glass or something like that. And you look at it and you're like, oh man, well, you know what? It's minor, no big deal. It'll heal. And then guess what happens? It doesn't. It doesn't heal. Because if you ignore it, what really happens is it gets infected. And then it starts to spread up your leg. And then it's a festering wound that gets bigger and bigger. And the next thing you know, you're chopping your frickin' leg off.
It's in the bone!
Okay, that escalated a little bit. The point that I'm making is we got to get out ahead of this thing, all right? Crime's out of control. It will spread if we don't get ahead of it. We have to understand that the things that happen in other states can, will, and do affect the rest of us. Hey, that's all the time I got for today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the I'm Just Sayin video podcast. I'm the CommonSensei. We'll see you next time.